Howdy, folks. Chuck Sheely here with Inside Cool Music Magazine, compelling stories from authentic musicians. Today, I'm here with one of the funkiest people to ever walk the planet, Mr. Herlin Riley, and we're going to talk about his wonderful career and his ideas in music and jazz in particular. He has a background as he's known as a master of cadences and percussions and so on. So we'll just let him tell the rest of the story. Hello, Mr. Riley. How are you today?
Hello, Chuck. How are you? And it's so good to be a part of this maiden voyage for this magazine.
Thank you, man. All right, it's our inaugural issue. It's our premiere issue. Here we go. We're leaving the dock right now. I'm so happy that you're with us to help us get going. Thanks.
Yeah, well, it's an absolute pleasure and an honor for me to be one of your first guests. And
thank you.
Thank you much for calling me and reaching out to me to do this. It's always fun to talk to you, and look forward to I'm sure we'll have a great time doing this interview.
Yes, we will. So well, since good times begin with music, and we all just had to sit the bench a little bit. Now it's October by the time this airs. Tell us about what you're playing now that you're back at it. Took a little while off, right?
Oh yeah, I took some time off, man. I've been home for a whole year and a half, and this is the longest I've ever been home in 45 years. All of my whole life has been in and out, coming home and then flying out to catch a plane, airports, sound checks, stages, hotels. But I've been still for a whole year and a half, and it's been quite an experience just to be at home and to be really, really domesticated for a little while.
Right, you have chores now and stuff, right?
Yeah, man, I got grass cutting to do and paint to do and little house repairs and all kind of little knick-knack things to do. And but besides that, the music business has been good to me as well, because I've had a chance to just sit around and be creative and create some other music. And
like what?
Well, I just I'm always writing stuff and always trying to put my hands in some kind of creativity for music and doing different kind of arrangements for different songs, those kinds of things. And so oftentimes when you're working a lot, you don't have time to focus on those things. So I've had a little time to focus on some different arrangements for different songs and to help some of my other friends who are collaborating and to writing some other pieces and putting some other projects together with some of my other musical friends. So so this time being off has been really, really great, and it's been strange, but it's been a really good time.
Yeah, I think for an artist in creative type, strange is an okay place, wouldn't you say? I mean, I understand that strange place, and so the same thing here when I don't know, almost 40 years of playing music every day of my life and out. It was weird to have a whole year or at least go more than 2 weeks without a show, let alone. Yeah. But on the other hand, I came up here to my studio, turned into Uncle Fester and created in that way. So that's cool. I think it offered that, the wrong way to offer that opportunity, but at least, people who like to write and compose had that opportunity,
Yes. And I tell you, another good thing that has come out of this whole pandemic thing is the fact that we now, doing more and more Zoom kind of calls like we're doing now, and Zoom interviews and being more engaged. We're more engaging with people around the world. And having the COVID thing is kind of giving us that opportunity to just to reach out and to fellowship with people from different parts of the world where normally you try to be there and meet them. We've never met in person, but I feel like I already know you, man, through the Zoom app already.
It did offer that, I am grateful for the friendship we've had with this interview and a couple other interviews. And geez, actually, we've done a few things together. Yeah, we've done some magazine work and wow, yeah. Cool. Yeah. Anyway, well, very good. So now you have an extensive career with Wynton Marsalis, and every time I watch those things, and I do watch them a lot because to me, that's a school to watch other people who are farther along than I am in my own abilities. You know, I love to watch it. Plus, I just love the music anyway. I was just talking to actually Buck Reed from Lyle Lovett's band, and I was commenting on how tight that orchestra is. He said, well, yes, it's the tightest orchestra there is. And then I paused. I said, well, no, wait. Wynton's band is pretty freaking tight too, man. You know, like intonation and rhythmically, you know. Anyway, so I watch those a lot, and it looks like you guys are having a blast. Is it?
Yeah. Well, Wynton and I, we became not only wonderful musical associates, but we're good friends. And when you spend a lot of time on the road with people, they become really like family. And
Sure.
you have your disagreements, but you find ways to get over those hurdles and to come back and always mend the relationships. Not that we've had many disagreements, but we've been like family. And being like family, we've had many conversations, musically speaking, and also socially, about life and about the music and about raising our kids and the relationships that we have with our wives and our mates or whatever. So when you have that kind of intimacy, it shows up in the music. It really shows up in the music. And so because we're on the road together, so as a unit, not just a pickup band, having guys where you pick up guys in Omaha, Nebraska, then you pick up somebody in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and you pick up somebody in Dallas, Texas, or whatever. We're all, as a unit, we all travel together and work together in that band as a unit. And then being that in a unit, in that kind of setting, it helps with the intimacy of the relationships, but also it really helps with the intimacy and the tightness of the music. So we were able to, that band, being in that band, we listen to music on the road. Sometimes we'd finish a concert and jump on a tour bus, and while we were riding to the next city, 2 or 3 in the morning, we're listening to the concert of the previous night. And sometimes we would actually critique each other about the choices that we made in the music. This music is a living, breathing art form as it is already, but it's always about the choices that you make. And sometimes in riding on these buses and traveling together, we would listen to it collectively together to the music. And in doing that, we would kind of talk about the pros and the cons of the performances. And that really helped in finding a cohesive kind of bond and that kind of intimacy with the music, because we were listening to it and we were criticizing it, and it works. It really works that when you have that kind of unit, that kind of bond with each other.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I call that the pillow talk that shows up into the music. If you're friends, you can hear it. If you're just throwing it together and being professional and all you need is a chart, it sounds like that too. But that's definitely exists in the band. So there's a lot of you in that big old group that I see. Where is it? Lincoln Center?
Yeah, it was the Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra.
Yeah. So is Wynton cool like that with everybody? Are all you guys tight like that?
Yeah. It started off with the septet. We had a septet, Wynton Marsalis septet. And what's nice is that when you have a person who's like the nucleus of a collective group of musicians, when the nucleus is cool and he embodies a certain kind of invitational kind of spirit, oftentimes that permeates throughout the other people who comes around. So when other people will come around, and they will kind of just adapt to the whole kind of to the feeling of what was going on already, that was already established. They would kind of adopt to that. And those who didn't adopt, and those who wasn't not a part of that whole camaraderie kind of thing, for various reasons, they left the band. They left, or either they got fired, or they quit, or they just didn't want to be a part of it. But those who stuck around were always engaging with one another and always open, and they shared a common bond, a common kind of warmth and vibration that really permeated throughout the music.
Right.
So yeah, people who came around, yes, they adopted to that kind of attitude, and it's because of the nucleus. And Wynton was the nucleus; he was the center of it all, and he would hire people who also embodied that kind of spirit too. And when he found, after a while, if they didn't embody that spirit, they left or they quit or whatever. And I think that is very, very important to the success, I think, of the music. It's about the chemistry of the individuals, the chemistry of the people. Sometimes you can have great players who come together, and because they don't have the chemistry with one another, the music really suffers. And so when you have the great chemistry and with great players, you can have a great musical conversation. So
yeah.
So that was always a part of the experience of playing with Wynton Marsalis, and that went through it. It doesn't matter if it was a small band or a big band, or even sometimes we've had collaborations with symphony orchestras, and the symphony orchestras, they would see how the big band was collectively being with one another, and they would kind of adopt that kind of attitude as well.
Now, I would imagine while that is one quality of working with Wynton, with the music that good, he must be pretty demanding too, against the cool, right? Alongside the cool.
He wrote, the music that first of all, the musicianship was the first and foremost attribute as to the people that he would call. Either they had kind of musicianship where they could read, where they could play, where they embodied a certain kind of sound, a certain kind of spirit in their playing. That was first.
Sure.
And then it would get to the chemistry part of it, whereby, can they get along with others? How are we going to manage being on the road together? All those so that was kind of like a second prerequisite. But the first prerequisite was definitely, can he play? Can he read? Can he, those things were very first. And because Wynton wrote a lot of difficult music, sometimes he'd write music, man, that starts off in 4/4, then it goes to 5/8, and then it goes to 3/4, and then 12/8. All these kind of different time signatures always jumping around. And he always wrote, he would write intricate lines and all these hard lines for people to play. So you really had to have a command of your instrument in order to just hang, and just be a part of the band. If you didn't have a command of your instrument, that was, you didn't even get the call.
Wouldn't make it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, cool. Thanks for sharing that. I've always wanted to know that kind of thing. So with what you're doing, you guys don't have anything necessarily coming up too quickly, but you do have some things coming up here pretty soon. I mean, you're at the Jazz Fest this month, right?
Yeah. October 17th, I'll be playing at New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival with my band, Herlin Riley Quintet. We'll be there. I'll be doing the Jazz Cruise coming up. And that's in January. And I also just got a call a couple of days ago to work with a wonderful singer. Her name is Dee Daniels, and working with Dee Daniels and also the great bassist John Clayton out of LA. We're going to be doing some things in Canada coming up. So things are kind of opening up after post-pandemic, and so I'm also working a lot here in New Orleans, where I work at the premier jazz club here called Snug Harbor. I've been working there for last 20 years or so, on and off. But post-pandemic, I've been working there, pretty much as a leader. I was working there always as a leader, but I was working there a lot also with the great Herlin Marsalis, Wynton's father.
I've seen him.
So
I saw Herlin Marsalis at Tepetina's.
Yeah, yeah. So he and I worked a lot with him at Snug Harbor here in New Orleans. But since he's passed away, I've kind of taken his Friday night spots over there. Sharing
Wow.
sharing those Friday night spots with his son Jason Marsalis, who's also a drummer. So he and I kind of alternated the Fridays that Ellis Marsalis used to work all the time.
So you have been writing, you said, and doing a lot of arranging. So tell us about what's going on there. What is it that you're working on, or more specifically, I guess I want to know this as a songwriter. When you are writing, what is your process? What is it? Where does that come from for you? You know, just how does that work with you?
Well, the music comes from different sources. Sometimes I'll start off with just a drum beat. I'll have a drum beat in my head, and then when I was having a drum beat, I'll start to maybe sing a bass line that goes with the drum beat, and then you kind of it starts to layer. Then once you hear the bass line, then you start to put chords that goes with the bass line. Or sometimes it'll, I'll start to hear a melody. I'll go to my piano and pick out and hear a melody. And then, once I hear the melody, then I start to try to put the chords to that melody. Sometimes it starts with the bass line. I can start with the bass line. I'll have a bass line going on in my head, and then I'll write down the bass line, and then have some friends of mine come play the bass line. Then I'll play a drum part that goes to that. Then we'll put the chords on top of that and try to figure out an arrangement and try to figure out, when should the bridge come up? How many times do we do the A section? Do we do a bridge? Do we add an interlude inside of it? Are we going to have vocals on it? Okay, if we have vocals, we have to write some lyrics for the vocalist to sing. So it starts. It's a I guess the process of writing, it just comes from whatever creative things that's going on in my head, whether it's a bass line or whether it's a drum beat, whether it's chords that I'm working on a set of chords and then put a melody to the chords I'm playing, or I'll hear a melody. And then after the melody, you start to play a chords that goes with the melody or a bass line that goes with that particular melody. So the source of it comes from different places. It depends on, which light bulb goes off my head first.
Sort of an open approach, I take it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
And so I think the most important thing about that is that I think for any musician or any really composer or whatever, I think it's about your honesty and being truthful and coming from a place of honesty and not always looking for. I think that's the real mark of artistry, honesty. Because sometimes, when people are looking for a formula for a hit or formula for popularity, I think the artistry really suffers. I think you're looking for a formula, you're looking for acceptance, you're looking for to be embraced. And I think sometimes true art is just something that just comes from your bowels, it comes out. And sometimes people like it, sometimes people don't. But it's really your truth and it's your honesty that's coming out. That's so important that to be stated.
Shabamba. Yeah, man, that's it. I mean, that's exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I started as a writer. That's how I got into music. I could write songs when I was 5 and did. And I've, I think it goes, not to talk about myself, but I think it goes for a lot of people who write. There's always this little insecure space of what if there's no validation or they hate it or it sucks or whatever. And, there was a certain point where enduring songwriter musicians such as myself and some of my pals are still in the game, was you just kind of have to say, you have to let that go. Just screw it. I signed up. This is what I do. I didn't even sign up. This is what I do. I wake up, key of D, and I do things in that key, and that's just what it is. And so after a while, yeah, I guess it is a matter of honesty. And interestingly, when that showed up, things in my career actually started to scoot along as well. And it's been pretty good ever since, you know. And so there is a lot to be said for keeping it real that way, you know. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of people who, it takes balls, it takes courage, because you know that there are going to be your critics are going to show up and they'll get you. But screw it, you know, and you just keep going and you will amass the people who do find you, you know. And I think
You
you
know,
actually have something to say in that point too that's worthwhile. I hope.
that is true. You know, I'm gonna just share this small story with you. And that is when I first got called to play with Wynton Marsalis, this was in 1988. The drummer that preceded me was Jeff Tane Watts. And Jeff Tane Watts was a drummer that plays, he really plays great drums, and he plays very interactively, where he plays conversational, you know, conversationally. Where if Wynton plays, Jeff will go pop 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 pop. You know, well he understood how to play inside of his playing, and he really understands that better than anybody I think I've ever heard play the drums. And so when I first joined the band, I was following him, so I tried to play like he played. You know, my approach to playing with Wynton's music was like he played, and then it was not working. It was not working. You know, I could see Wynton being frustrated every night. You know, this went on for about a week and a half, 2 weeks. And man, I could just see him being frustrated every night at my playing. He'd always, after he plays a solo, he would come back and, you know, say stuff in my ear while I'm playing, try to tell me how to play and those kind of things. Then at a certain point, I said, man, screw it. I'm going to just do what I want to do. I'm going to just play how I play. And if he sends me home, he sends me home. I'll just go home. So I'm not going to worry about what Jeff Tane Watts played, what he played, or anybody else played. I'm going to play how Herlin Riley plays. And when I did that, then his face brightened up. I started playing my own style, my own way, and he brightened up. And as a result of that, his whole composing strategies kind of changed, because he said, man, how you play, you're playing with me, you give me a lot of space to play in, and there's a lot of openness. I never could hear myself playing like that for a long time, because the drums were always interacting with him, which was a great thing. He played great that way, but it just wasn't enough open space for him to create and to do other things. So being honest and being true to my own spirit and my own self, it helped, you know, it helped me, and it also helped him in his whole approach to writing music.
Well, it only makes sense, you know, because the exact same thing is what you have to do to have a great personal relationship with somebody that you love, right? You have to be honest and open up and give each other a little room to jam in there and be yourself. And so that's a great analogy for what needs to happen in music, I think, especially when you're in such an improvisational art form such as jazz, you know. And so yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's a great point for, I hope people who are here and learning about music, I guess we're always learning about music, heard that. So
Yes.
So you also told me that you have some things coming up, I think, in New York. Is that right?
Yes. The club that's at Jazz at Lincoln Center, there's a jazz club there called Dizzy's Coca-Cola Club. And so that I'll be doing that coming up in a few weeks. I'll be playing that club. There, you know, post-pandemic, I'll be like one of the first acts to play there since the pandemic, and I'm looking forward to that as well. I'll be, you know, playing there with some of the younger musicians who recorded with me. Emmett Coyne will be on piano, and Russell Hall will be playing the bass, and Godwin Louis plays the saxophone, and Bruce Harris plays the trumpet. And I'm hopefully I'll get my good friend to come in and set in with us, John Baptiste. So John Baptiste was one of my students back in the early 90s. He was one of my students, and hopefully, he's blown up. He's blown up. I mean, over with winning an Oscar and winning a Golden Globe Award and so many different awards in the Colbert Show. But he was also one of the musicians that worked with me. And so I'm hoping that he will come by and sit in with us on a few numbers in New York during
That'd
that
be
week that I'm
cool.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on, man. All right, let me see
Yeah.
how we're doing here real quick. Got to manage that. All right. So, do you have a website? I don't think you do. I don't think I see one. I see Wikipedia and other things.
Yeah, there's a website. I don't
You-
manage it very well. I have a friend of mine who put it together and kind of manages it.
So
But
if I mention it in our next bit here, it's cool then to
yeah,
have. Yeah, I'm gonna have you say it, and then we show it at the bottom of the screen and stuff like that. So before we go there, is there anything else? What else should we talk about? There's a number of things.
well, I can tell
Like,
you one. I can tell you about I've had an association with the great Ahmad Jamal, who's a great pianist, and he just turned 92 years old, and he turned 90. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, he turned 91 years old, July 2nd, and he's been one of my greatest mentors and one of the greatest greatest musical associates, besides Wynton. He's been a force in my life that's that has helped me and helped propel me to whatever level that I'm on today. And I don't know if you know who he is, but he's a great pianist. He had a hit in the early '60s called Poinciana, and I've been associated with him. I first started playing with him in 1982, and I left him in '87. Then I went back to play with him in 2009, up until he retired, just at the start of the pandemic. So he's been a great force in my life and a great inspiration. And I just want to say, that Ahmad Jamal is, and he's not only Ahmad Jamal was one of the people that really inspired Miles Davis. So
I didn't know that.
yes. He inspired Miles Davis, and that's been documented in several books about Miles' associate Ahmad. And but he's also, he's been one of the people that's also inspired me. And so I have to just always like to take my hats off to certain people in my life that has helped me in my musical development, my career. And so he's definitely one of them. And I just want to say one more person. He's passed away now. His name was Mr. Danny Barker. Danny Barker was a great banjo and guitarist who was from New Orleans, Louisiana, and then he moved to New York City in 1930, and he played with Cap Calloway and Billie Holiday, and played with Billy Eckstine and Milt Henson of Grace Places, and so many. Yeah, so he retired. When he retired from playing music in New York, he came down to New Orleans, and he formed a band of children, and it was a band of kids from 8 to 18. And I happened to be one of the guys who was in the band. This is in the 1970s. And I was playing the trumpet at the time. And so Danny Barker, he formed the band. It was called the Fairview Baptist Church Christian Band. It was like a brass band, New Orleans brass band that he formed. And his mentorship has propelled not only myself, but so many other musicians to become professional musicians. The clarinetist Dr. Michael White, was in the band. Leroy Jones, who played with Harry Connick Jr., he was like the leader of the band at the time. He played the trumpet. And there was so many. Lucian Barberin, who also played with Harry Connick, he played the trombone. He was a part of the band. And I'm just rattling off a few names, but there were many guys who were a part of that band who've gone on to become professional musicians. And Danny Barker was that guy for me. And so one thing that he also taught us is that the music is bigger than the individual. And so as we attain and gain knowledge in the music, we should always pass it on. You know, this music is like the queen bee, and we are the workers. So we have to keep the bee alive. And so passing on the information that we have and the knowledge that we have, that we gathered through the years, is important for the whole life of the music that we're playing.
All right, man. Well, I've certainly enjoyed the heck out of talking with you today. I'm glad you showed up, especially since it's our inaugural issue. What a treat to have you on for that. So, before we get out of here, tell everybody where we can find you online to stay in touch with Herlin Riley.
Well, you can always touch HerlinRiley.com. I have that's a website that I have. You could always find me. You can check out some of the things I've done on YouTube. You can always Google me and find out who I am and what I do.
Everybody go out there, go to YouTube. It's all over the place, and it's really, really great music. So, all right. Well, everybody, thanks for being here for our inaugural issue, our premiere issue of Inside Cool Music Magazine, compelling stories from authentic musicians. You heard one right here, Mr. Herlin Riley. If you had a good time, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to our newsletter. Please tell your friends all about it. Tell them to do the same thing, hit our like buttons and sign up. Make sure you, if there's something that you would like to talk about what you heard today, we'd love to hear your questions. If you have ideas for other topics that we could talk about music in an authentic way, we'd love to hear that too. Otherwise, we'll see you on social media. We're everywhere all the time. Have a great day. We love you. Peace.